All right, let's dive right into this explainer and unpack the monumental shifts introduced in the August 2026 release of Linux kernel 7.2. We are looking at a release that is fundamentally changing the game. It's totally reshaping how the world's most ubiquitous operating system is built, scaled, and secured.
To see how this critical software is adapting, we're going to follow a quick roadmap. First, the algorithmic era. Then, reinventing the CPU scheduler, memory and storage overhauls, high-speed interconnects, and finally, post-quantum security and Rust.
Starting off with Section 1, the algorithmic era arrives.
You've really got to look at the sheer scale we're dealing with here. Over 43 million. That's the staggering number of lines of code spread across more than 108,000 files in the 7.2 kernel release. To put that into perspective, nearly 1 million lines of executable instructions were added in the single development cycle alone. A huge chunk of that was dedicated to hardware enablement, like the AMD graphics driver stacks.
And this massive influx? Well, it brings us to the real culture shock of the 7.2 cycle. The principal maintainer, Linus Torvalds, actually referred to this as the new normal. He's talking about a massive, systemic shift where AI is now actively participating in how the kernel is built. We're seeing an unprecedented wave of automated, machine-generated code reviews and patch submissions.
To really understand this shift, we have to talk about Sashiko. So what is it? It's an autonomous, artificial intelligence code review system managed directly by the Linux Foundation. Powered by advanced large language models, Sashiko sits right there in the development pipeline. It's genuinely awe-inspiring, honestly. You have an AI independently ingesting and reviewing proposed human kernel changes straight from the mailing lists, long before a real person even touches them.
But, as you might guess, algorithmic development is a bit of a double-edged sword. On one hand, Sashiko is a massive success, independently catching up to 53.6% of latent bugs before a human even has to look at them. That's huge. But on the other hand, it is creating some intense administrative friction. Maintainers are just getting inundated with a high volume of low-quality patches that completely lack architectural context. With a false positive bug reporting rate approaching 20%, exhausted developers are spending way too much time dealing with what they playfully, or maybe painfully, call AI slop.
Moving right along to Section 2, reinventing the CPU scheduler.
Okay, so for 15 years, the Completely Fair Scheduler, or CFS, managed your CPU time. But its strict, heavily work-conserving nature just couldn't handle the wake-up latency required by today's highly polarized workloads. So, it's out. It has now been replaced by EEVDF, that stands for Earliest Eligible Virtual Deadline First. This is the new default scheduler, and it brings a level of mathematical rigor designed specifically to reduce latency for complex microservices. But you know, fixing latency is really only half the battle here. This brings us to an absolutely critical problem. How do you actually schedule tasks on modern, complex chiplets? Today's processors feature incredibly complex silicon fabrics and multiple isolated last-level cache domains. If you move a task from one core to another across these domains, you invalidate the cache, you congest the interconnects, and you absolutely destroy your performance. It's a nightmare.
So the solution is a cache-aware scheduler, and here's how it works. First, it identifies threads belonging to the same process that share memory address spaces. Second, it dynamically overrides that old strict rule that a core should never be idle, instead favoring soft microarchitectural affinity. Third, it actively groups these related threads onto the exact same last-level cache domain. It's kind of like a traffic cop, right? Keeping all the workers in the same office building rather than making them commute across the city. This completely prevents that cross-domain instruction validation and cache bouncing across the silicon fabric.
And what's really wild about this is the kernel's newfound flexibility. The introduction of SchedX allows hyperscalers to hot swap their CPU scheduler at runtime using eBPF programs loaded straight from user space. Literally, no reboot required. If the custom scheduler misbehaves, a failsafe kicks in, dropping you seamlessly back to EEVDF to prevent system starvation. But a quick side note here, not all scheduling experiments succeed right out of the gate. For instance, the attempt to add a fair GPU scheduler for DRM was actually reverted back to a simple FIFO model in 7.2 because of some catastrophic real-world regressions. So trial and error is still part of the process.
All right, on to Section 3, memory and storage overhaul.
Mathematically speaking, this next part is a massive shift. Swap Table Phase 4 entirely eliminates the static O of n memory overhead that used to exist just for tracking swap slots.
By consolidating that swap metadata directly into the folio structure, a modern enterprise server deploying NVMe storage actually saves about 512 megabytes of active RAM for every single terabyte of active swap. That is a huge cost and performance recovery for large database clusters. The overarching theme here is definitely compression. Memory management overhead is just being squeezed out to handle the sheer scale of modern hyperscale clouds. Just look at these upgrades. MGLRU optimizations significantly speed up the synchronous reclaim loop for dirty pages, which heavily decreases those unpredictable file refaults. Over in file systems, Btrfs now has large folios enabled by default, greatly improving I/O efficiency for large-scale sequential databases. Structurally, the buffer head cleanup removed the B_IND_IO callback pointer. That shrinks the footprint down to just 96 bytes and, as a bonus, eliminates a major control flow hijacking target. Finally, for cloud providers, new RDMA features permit single-hop block replication that completely bypasses the compute host CPU. It's all about streamlining.
Let's move into Section 4, High-Speed Interconnects.
Now this is cool. Meet USB 4 Stream. It literally treats a standard USB-C cable as a generalized direct memory access fabric, completely bypassing the complex TCP/IP Linux networking stack. Think about that. You can pipe massive datasets directly from one host to another with zero overhead, using standard POSIX commands, entirely avoiding the usual delays of Ethernet protocols. It's a total game changer for local data transfer.
But 7.2 isn't just about adding fancy new tech. It's also about aggressively purging the old to keep the system lean and constrain the attack surface. In this release, they brought down the axe and permanently removed support for the 40-year-old AppleTalk protocol, ISA and PCM-CIA-based ArcNet interfaces, Chelsea inline TLS accelerators, legacy ATM network adapters, and even the Hercules graphics architecture, which was used for ancient monochrome displays. Sometimes, you just gotta clean house.
Now, while the mainline kernel races forward, enterprise deployments run on stability. This structured long-term support alignment provides absolutely critical, practical data for enterprise vendors. Looking at the projected end-of-life timeline for LTS versions, which stretches all the way back to 5.10, gives organizations exactly the data they need to confidently plan their product lifecycles over the next several years.
And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, Post-Quantum Security and Rust.
The kernel is taking definitive, immediate steps into post-quantum security right now. Classical cryptography is highly vulnerable to the harvest now, decrypt later threat posed by rapidly advancing quantum computers. In response, Linux 7.2 integrates lattice-based cryptography, specifically the ML-DSA standard, directly into its core framework. This is absolutely crucial to ensure long-term data integrity and secure boot sequences. To build that fortified foundation, Rust is officially no longer considered experimental. It is now fully recognized for its rigid memory safety guarantees and boilerplate reduction, currently making up about 0.34% of the kernel source code. Additionally, the new task_exec state structure permanently fixes a critical race condition involving the ptrace system call, guaranteeing secure state auditing. And down at the hardware level, DM inline crypt allows the kernel to offload disk encryption directly to the silicon of universal flash storage, protecting your data with literally zero CPU overhead.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to consider this. With AI autonomously reviewing bugs, Rust securing high-risk memory, and the scheduler intelligently managing vast chiplet domains, what is the Linux kernel going to look like by 2030? The algorithmic era is here, and it will undoubtedly continue to push the boundaries of this incredible open-source ecosystem. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into Linux 7.2.